Good morning, viewers. Welcome back once again to another episode of demystifying myths of strength training. And this is basically the part three. And I made this part three. It took me some time because I was busy making some other videos on some other topics, which were necessary in that due period of time. But anyway, this is a part three of demystifying myths of strength training, and today we are going to discuss about the deltoid, also called the shoulder muscles. See, the deltoid consists three types of muscles, and the anterior deltoid or the front deltoid, the side and the rear. And the anterior deltoid, it starts from the anterior or two-thirds of the clavicle, the last part of the clavicle, the collarbone, and it inserts here the deltoid tuberosity. The side deltoids, it starts from the lateral part of the shoulder here, and it inserts into the deltoid tuberosity. And the rear deltoid, it starts from the spine of the scapula. Spine means at the border of the scapula, and it inserts again into the deltoid tuberosity. Basically, as we know that this is basically the origin and insertion of muscles. The proximal point is called the origin, and the distal point, where the muscle has been attached, is called the distal point, is called the insertion. So basically, the deltoid muscle is basically a kind of muscle fiber. It falls in the classification of multiplate muscle fibers, because multiplate in the sense the muscles is broader out here and it's smaller out here, so it's like a fan-shaped muscle. It's like a fan-shaped muscle, just like the chest muscles runs from here and it inserts into the pec deltoid. So it's like a fan-shaped muscle. And at the same time, the deltoid muscles function in various ways, and various ways means it can move in this manner, which is called the anterior shoulder flexion, and while doing any kind of adduction, all these kind of movements, and while raising your arm sideways, it involves the side deltoids, the rear deltoids. But the type of muscle fibers which is in the deltoid is basically type 2X muscle fibers, mostly power fibers. That's why whenever we do some shoulder exercises, we tend to get tired very frequently. And these are really powerful muscles. These are very strong and powerful muscles which really gets tired very soon. So the proportion of the deltoid muscle fibers, the type 2X or the type 2B muscle fibers, are more in number than type 1 muscle fibers, the endurance fibers, because that's why we really need to train heavy more often than light, because you really need to train in the range of 6 to 8 or 6 to 10 more often than 12 to 15, because 12 to 15 is basically in the light category, and you should train with heavy weights more often to have a good development of the deltoid muscles. And one more thing, you really need to stretch the muscles, because the muscles is exactly here, and this particular joint is called the glenohumeral joint, and which is basically a ball and socket joint. It rotates in 360-degree angle. So you have to know that this kind of joint basically gets injured quite often, and it circumducts, it rotates 360 degree. So you really have to be careful, and the deltoid muscles get injured quite often, because in all those upper body exercises we quite use our upper body muscles, the deltoid muscles, as secondary muscles to do all these kind of exercises for chest exercises. So this muscles basically is being frequently used in upper body exercises. And moreover, I have seen that a lot of bodybuilders or trainers used to design programs, suppose if they are designing programs based on shoulder, suppose today is the shoulder day, they will include the trapezius also. The trapezius muscle is not the shoulder muscle. Let me tell you, deltoid contains only three muscles, which is the front deltoid, the side deltoid, and the rear deltoid. Trapezius is not a shoulder muscle, because you should not confuse trapezius muscle and deltoid muscle combinedly, because yes, you can train them in the same day, but the thing is that this is not a shoulder muscle. The shoulder muscles are this only, and the trapezius muscle is a back muscle. It is not a part of the shoulder muscle, let me tell you. And one more thing, the deltoid basically functions in a lot of ways. The deltoid function is a lot of ways. Basically the front deltoid works in two ways. One is the shoulder flexion, and the anterior flexion in this plane. This is called the sagittal plane, and the deltoid also works in this plane, the frontal plane. So the front deltoid works like this, and the lateral deltoid, it works in one plane only. That is the this one. That is called the frontal plane, means dividing the body into front and the rear arm. And one more thing you need to remember is that while raising arms, let me show you, while doing deltoid exercises, thing is that when you raise your arms, you should not keep your hands down fully. You should keep your arms raised a little bit, because if you make the starting position from here again, then the supraspinatus muscles gets involved. That's why while training the deltoid muscles, you should always maintain a tension out here. So you should keep your arms at least 12 inches higher from your hips, so that it maintains a constant tension of the deltoid, and that is the range of motion of the deltoid. And you should raise your arms just below parallel till here, because if you raise it too much, again the supraspinatus muscle will come into play and the trapezius. So mainly the deltoids works in the mid plane, the mid range of motion. Even in the case of front deltoid also, they work mostly contract mostly in the mid range, and even in the case of rear deltoids. So the deltoids mainly works in the mid range of motion. You should not go for the full range of motion right from the bottom, because you will lose energy. And while training your rear delts on the machine, you should not bring your arms too forward. You should play it in a mid range of motion, this much only, just a little bit, this much. So, and one more thing, while training the deltoids, one important thing is that you should not twist your wrist, because if you twist your wrist by doing lateral raises, what will happen is that you are doing internal rotation, and that is going to create impingement injury on your shoulder. And because why? Because if you rotate your arms as if in the old days, most of the bodybuilders, even today also, most of the time, it's been written in bodybuilding magazines also, in books also, that you should twist the wrist as if you were pouring water from a bottle or a glass while doing lateral raises, because that is not acceptable. Because what will happen if you under the load, if you rotate your wrist inwards, then what will happen? The glenohumeral joint, the humeral head, is going to go near the acromion, this is the acromion, and there will be a rubbing effect, and that is going to cause frozen shoulder in the near future. So you should be careful about that. You keep your arms normal and just raise it. Bring your arm little bit forward in a 45-degree angle and raise it just below parallel. That is the exact range of motion. And if I show it from your side, it will be like this. It will be like this. You should bring your arms a little bit away from the hips, bring it a little bit forward, then raise it. Not too by the side of your body. Because if you do it just from the side of your body, it's going to cause a lot of tension on the shoulder area and it's going to cause injury. You should bring your arms a little bit forward and raise it in a 45-degree angle. That is going to stretch the deltoids far better, the side deltoids, and you will get a good pump and the muscles will be developed very fast. And always try to use moderate weights, because side deltoids, although they contains faster muscle fibers, you have to use a logic also, because while doing lateral raise, that is basically a third class lever, so you will not be able to use too much of weight. And do not bend your arms like this while doing lateral raise, although you'll be able to use heavier weights, because the reason is that the moment arms is shorter, and that's the reason you are able to use more weights. And when you increase the length of the limb, the moment arm increases and there will be a lot of tension in the muscle. So our aim is not to lift too much of weight. Our aim is to use the muscle, put tension on the muscle so that it grows. It's not about lifting heavy weights like lateral raises like this. No, flapping, chicken flapping the wings. You should not do it like that. And for the rear deltoid, again, you can use machines, cables, and in doing single joint exercises for the deltoids, as if front raises, lateral raises, or rear flies, you should use more of resistant bands or cables, because they maintain constant tension, and which is more beneficial for developing the deltoid muscles, especially in single joint exercises. And for multi-joint exercises, you can do all sort of presses, dumbbell presses, you can do barbell presses, and avoid behind the neck presses. Again, there is an issue with the rotator cuff muscle. You will injure the rotator cuff muscle. Do all the presses in front of you. So that's it, guys. You can train the deltoid muscle once or twice a week or thrice a week, depending on the intensity of exercise, and train heavy more often. And in that way, you will be able to generate more intensity in your workout, and you'll be able to develop the muscle more. And so until next time, I'll be coming up with more videos on different muscle groups. Till then, goodbye.